Welcome back to Introduction to Linux. My name is Connor Meisner-Toops, and I am your guide through this series. You're watching Episode 5, Grep and Alias. Now that you've got the basics of Linux under your belt, it's time we start learning about grep. Grep is probably one of the most important commands you will learn when working with Linux. Let's take a look at the man page. If you read the description of grep, you'll find that grep searches named input files, or the stream, for lines matching a certain pattern. Basically, grep allows you to filter through a file for a specific pattern. This is very much like the find command you see in most modern browsers and document editors. Let's see an example of grep. To use grep, you would grep your target, in this case let's use the word free, and then your destination. The destination can be a file or a stream. The file we're going to use is the license that we've been working with in video 4. As you can see, grep found entire paragraphs containing the word free. While at first grep appears very simple, you'll find that grep has a lot of commands and options that makes it complex. Let's look at another example. Let's say I want to find how many times the word free appears in the GPL license. To do that, I would use the -c command. As you can see, the word free appears 20 times in the license. Before we continue, it's probably best that I explain commands a little bit better. In Linux, you can add optional arguments in any order. For example, the -c command could have come before the free command. Additionally, you can append multiple arguments to the same dash line. For example, we've done the ls-la command before, which lists all of the files according to the long preference, as well as all of the hidden files. You can also divide it up with dashes for each one, like such. You cannot, however, add spaces without the dash. This is going to become incredibly important when you start working with grep, because you tend to require multiple options when using the grep command. Let's take another look at the grep manual. If we scroll through the options, we can see that there's quite a few of them. This list goes on and on and on, and really most of them you won't need for basic Linux usage. Here's a good command. The -w lists only the lines opposed to the paragraphs, where a pattern is matched. Let's take a look at that. Here, we are searching for free in the license again, but we're adding the -w. If you look closely at these lines, you'll see some of them are matched that don't have the word free in it. For example, this non-free line. That's because grep doesn't search by words, but by patterns. Grep is looking for the letter F, the letter R, the letter E, and again the letter E in a line. Grep doesn't care what came before or after those arguments. If you wanted to search specifically for a word, you'd want to use the -o. Another thing you can do with grep is get the line number from a file. For example, -n will give you only the line as well as the number it's on in the file. Next, let's talk about the alias command. The alias command allows you to write shortcuts. For example, grep_free will be our shortcut name, and we want our shortcut name to equal grep free GPL version 3. When you press OK, nothing's going to happen. Remember, in Linux, when nothing happens, that typically indicates a success. Let's go ahead and try it out. grep_free is now a command that searches the GPL license for the word free. But what if we wanted to use the grep free on other files? For example, what if we wanted to check to see if the example file in our home folder had the word free in it? To do that, we would need to change the way our alias works. Changing an alias is remarkably simple. All you have to do is recreate it. Now grep free will simply run grep space free. Now let's try running grep free. It looks like we've run into an error. To escape, remember you can always press Ctrl-C. If you try grepping without an input stream, you'll end up causing your terminal issues. So instead, let's do grep GPL license, and we can see it works like it used to. Now though, if we do grep example file, we get totally different output. In this case, because example didn't actually give us the word free, we know that it doesn't exist in that file. By default, most Linux distributions come with some default aliases. To see what those aliases are, you can run the alias command without any arguments. Here's a great example. The O command opens up less. Let's try O GPL license. Here's a couple other really nifty ones. The L command is the same as ls-la. As you can see, the alias command can seriously come in handy. One thing to note, however, is that user-generated aliases will disappear when you close the session or enter a new tab. Let me show you. Now that we're in a new tab, if I run grep_free, the system tells me grep_free does not exist. If I return to the previous terminal and run that same command, it still exists. For now, when you mess with aliases, remember that they'll disappear. If you want to make your aliases permanent, you need to add them to your bash rc file, which is located in your home directory. Your home directory is very useful for customizing your Linux experience. For example, my unique terminal prompt, where you can see my name, the Linux server, and my location, is generated by this PS1 line at the bottom. You won't have to understand what's in this file to use Linux. It is, however, useful to know how to add and remove content to this file. In the final video of this series, I'm going to show you how you can add aliases to this file. Well, that concludes this video. If you're having any trouble, feel free to rewatch these videos. In the next video, we're going to look at streams. See you then.